So thanks everybody for coming out. The Energy Fair is always great to be at. And yeah, me and Matt are going to be doing a talk today, like Kim was just saying. We're both owner builders. We've both been here for about 7 years, and we built Earthship houses here down in the Grants. And more or less, we're just going to talk briefly a little bit about our experience of doing everything out of pocket and taking a number of years to get it done and finalized, but all the steps of what you kind of have to do if you're planning on doing something like this sooner than later, especially with all the building code stuff potentially changing in the years to come. And then we're going to open it up to some questions later on, and feel free to ask, a question specifically if it's something that's relevant at the time. So, Matt, yeah, you want to?
Yeah, a little bit about myself. I'm Matt Evers. Started an excavation company here, Everstone Excavation and Septic. And yeah, Goldie, my partner, and I, we built an Earthship in the Baca and the Grants. And yeah, Pete and I do the YouTube channel, and we're just trying to, support our alternative builds, support our alternative building culture here, and keep it going for as long as we can. We're really just in it for networking people. If you got a certain build you're concerned about or questions, if we don't have the answers, we'll try and connect you with people who do and people who have experience in that field of building. Also, loopholes and just trying to figure out your build and being compliant with the POA and the county building codes and all that. And, I think working in harmony with the POA is something that we can accomplish, and I think that's something that we should strive to do, and just be in coexistence with them and have them maybe work for us someday and help us out, and we can do the same for them.
Yeah, and to add on kind of to what Matt was just saying right there, we both started our builds. We're neighbors. We live about 3 houses down the road from each other, down in the Grants, and we both built Earthship houses, which is made out of tires. It's a little bit alternative, obviously, so it fits in for Saguache County with not having building codes. So it's really truly a pocket of freedom still to build a lot of these things like Earthships, straw bales, scria bag houses. We have a lot of friends and networks of neighbors that are doing stuff. But we originally met each other in 2017 or so when we pulled our permits in the springtime. I think it was May of 2017, and we started our process together. So it was really good to have a community member and a neighbor doing the same thing that you were doing, because lots of times, if we're doing his tires, okay, next weekend we're doing my tires. If we're doing my roof this weekend, next weekend we'd work on his roof. So it's a really great way, just like the Energy Fair, to collaborate and network with people that are interested in different things, alternative things. And both me and Matt, we never had any sort of real construction background. I never owned a drill or a hammer before I went to Earthship Biotexture. So kind of buying land and securing land and then kind of getting started was intimidating. So to have someone or other groups of people that have been here 5-10 years before you that kind of guide you and help you out with certain steps is really crucial to your success. Because if we were to do this in the middle of nowhere, say Alaska, where you're 2 hours away from a community of people that are also, hey, can you help do the roof this weekend? It's so hard to do when you're just doing everything by yourself. So an owner builder, I would argue, you don't necessarily do everything yourself, but you kind of are your own general contractor. So just like someone that might build a house with a contractor, the contractor is kind of managing things, the electrician, subcontracts for plumbing, things like that, cement subcontract maybe. You're kind of juggling that act and wearing that hat as your GC as the owner builder. So you might not do everything, and you might need guidance on certain things that are specific, like how we have electrical code and plumbing code, but that's where you network and get people involved that can help you.
Yeah, and I got to cheat off Pete's plumbing too. I'd go over there, he got his plumbing inspection done before me, and I'd be like, what did he say? What do we got to do? And I like to say that DIY doesn't mean to do it all by yourself. I think it takes a community to help you, and I think it's just makes everything easier. I think that 2 people can get a job done more than twice as fast as one. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good thing Matt just said about the inspection. So just to preface, I know a lot of people know about Saguache County and us obviously being a pocket of freedom with still no building codes. But you do still have plumbing codes, state plumbing codes that you have to pass with DORA, which is Department of Regulatory Agencies, and there's certain signs of your plumbing that you have to get signed off on. And there's also state electrical inspections for Saguache County. So you do have to actually have a state inspector come look at the electrical and make sure everything's at code, everything's 6 feet receptacles from door, 12-foot runs for receptacles after that. So there's a little bit of a learning curve, and still you can build to code in the sense of electrical and plumbing, but still build alternatively. So they weren't looking at our tires. There's nobody coming out and saying, oh, that tire can structurally hold this much PSI or what, you know, but it would be one of those things where plumbing and electrical, you still have to kind of have that relationship with the state inspector. But those permits are pretty cheap. You know, you can pull a permit as an owner builder. If you buy a piece of land for, lots of pieces of land here down in the grants are, I don't know, starting at 12, 13 grand on up. If you buy a piece of land for 12 grand and you pull a permit, the DORA permit for plumbing and electric, it's only a couple $100. And especially if you say, hey, I'm gonna do the work as a homeowner, you pull it, maybe you have a neighbor or a friend that has done that before, help you out or show you, hey, this is what the inspector wants to see. And then it's a little bit easier to get into.
Yeah, and if I have any word of advice for any of the inspections, it's be there with the inspector for every inspection. So it's interactive. Don't just like leave the house and expect the guy to pass you. Like, be there, be interactive, be friendly, roll with the punches. They might not pass you every time. I think I failed one, and it was just a simple. And if I wasn't there, I would have been confused. You know, they're giving us information. I mean, they're not. Donovan said it earlier. I don't know if he's here today, but he said they're not contractors, but they will help us along the way. Even, you know, gray water is illegal. We can do that here in Colorado, and we can harvest rain catchment. I don't know if should I go into this right now? Probably not, but we'll go into that in a minute. But yeah, just be there with the inspectors and be interactive and ask your neighbors, ask your friends. Nelium, my buddy is a plumber. He helped me out. I recommend him for anything. Great plethora of knowledge.
And there's also on the permit side of it, speaking of kind of the steps you have to do. So say you secure land, say you buy land through a realtor, right? That realtor, usually it comes with what's called a warranty deed, right? So you can build on it right away. There's things and loopholes of getting land. So if you're thinking about wanting to build and acquire a cheap piece of land, when I bought my land back in 2015, it was $2,700 for 1.63 acres here down in the Grants. Nowadays, it's 4 times higher, 5 times higher. You'll see plots that are 15 grand, 16 grand, and that's on the low end of the Baca. So prices are going up. But Saguache County, on their website, there's a thing called the Saguache County Owned Lot List. So they publish this once a year, and a lot of people here and neighbors and friends have taken advantage of this. But it's more or less back tax lots that get assessed or taken back from Saguache County Treasurer, and you can make minimum bids. In the grants, it's starting at $4,000 a lot. In the chalets, it's $5,000 a lot. I think Casita Park, I think the minimum's $1,700 a lot you can bid on. So you can get into a lot for a lot more affordable price, but what they do is give you what's called a quitclaim deed. So the quitclaim deed is something you have to eventually transfer into a clear title for another $1,000 for, again, half the price of what you might spend with a realtor. You, and a little bit of time and effort, you could have land for half the price. So that's a big thing to get, is just the land first.
And our goal for promoting this is to fill up these lots with owner builders and people who want to build cool things and not pull in modulars. And no shame if you live in a modular, it's just we want to promote the alternative scene here and keep it enriched and alive and trying new things. And I think that's why we all kind of love Crestone.
Yeah, and after you get the land, the thing, if you live in the POA and the Baca, what you have to do is you have to pull that said plumbing permit with the state, that said electrical permit with the state. You have to pull a septic permit with the county, an on-water wastewater treatment that they were talking about yesterday. And then also you have to pull a construction permit with the county.
Come over.
Here's Nick.
Here's Nick, our favorite realtor.
He's cutting in.
Hi, I'm Nick Navarez with Mountainside Realty. I just wanted to make a quick addendum to what you mentioned regarding the quitclaim deeds. You know, that is an option. You can get a treasurer deed or a quitclaim deed from the county. However, it is really important that you find out what potential liens are against the property prior to owning it, right? Because there can be the Baca Water and Sanitation, there can be taxes, And so I've run into a situation before where while you can go ahead and get those properties, and oftentimes it's 7 to 9 years, you have to wait if you want to build on it or get what's called a quiet title action, which expunges the prior ownership's claim on it. However, it does not expunge the prior liens against the property. So those would still have to be paid. And oftentimes, especially if you're going to try and sell them again, that can be really expensive. So it's just something to be considerate about. I think a lot of us here are familiar with that process. And if anyone ever wants to know more, I'm always happy to answer questions. All right, thanks, Mike.
Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Nick.
But yeah, that's very important what he said. There is a little bit of time and effort that you have to do if you were to get a piece of land for cheap and know all the background of things you might have to catch up with payment-wise. But keep on going with the BACA and the POA at least, because that's the majority of where people live and build alternatively out here, is you have to have the septic tank, and then you also have to pull a construction permit with Saguache County. And you have to pull a permit with the POA, which I believe is $500, and then also give them a series of deposit money, which you get back in stages of your build over your entirety. So if it takes you 4 years to build, you'll eventually get your deposit money back after 4 years, right? So that's a couple $1,000. So it is worth it to consider if you're doing everything out of pocket on a budget and you're not taking out financing or mortgage like how me and Matt did it. If you're putting every $800 you have extra a month into your build, it's going to take longer. And there are things like, again, deposits and fees and stuff you have to pay up front. So if you can have a little bit of money and a little bit of cash flow to start, that's the best thing to get it going, because it will go fast after you start adding up all your costs. Even if you're using repurposed materials like pulling windows out of the Buena Vista Restore. I think every one of my windows I got and doors for like under $150 except for one, and that was 10, 15 windows, where if you bought new windows, that would be thousands and thousands of dollars, right, going to a big box store.
We have videos on this stuff. If it's a lot of information right now, we make videos on this on our YouTube channel, Owner Builders Unite, and it would help us if you guys subscribe to our channel. That'd help. I'm probably going to say that again at the end, just to shamelessly promote.
But Matt's right. Yeah, we got a lot of videos and information and content very similar to how the Energy Fair has workshops and demos and home tours. We have a lot of that stuff that overlaps what the Energy Fair does, because we love everybody that's involved with the Energy Fair. We've done a lot of stuff with the Energy Fair, whether it's demos or panels or home tour stuff over the years. So yeah, if you like today and you like yesterday, check out our channel, check out the Energy Fair's YouTube channel, because it's throughout the year more and more stuff that you can do that's not just the 2-day event today. So
yeah, we got videos on rainwater catchments that Pete does. Pete's the brains behind a lot of this stuff. He does a lot of the book work, and he does the editing of the videos. And yeah, we have videos on the updates on our county codes that recently changed. And I want to thank all the people in the panel, Lisa Bodie and Goldie and Mo. What was that panel called there, babe? The Mindful Land Use Group pretty much helped us not have codes in Saguache County, and I think they deserve a round of applause for that. That's keeping the dream alive for a lot of us. We did a video on that. We do Energy Fair promotional videos. We even do like weird truck build videos. And so if you guys out there know of a house that we can go tour, or you got a good idea for our channel and you want to do maybe a demonstration video or tour your cool house, reach out to us, let us know. We're in cahoots with the Off-Grid Guru over here who's just rolling into the park. Eric, he's helping out a lot and inspiration to us on YouTube and promoting us here and there, and we really appreciate that.
Yeah, so again, the YouTube channel just kind of is a umbrella for all these things that are kind of happening today, and it's throughout the year. We usually release a video about 2 or 3 a month, and it's just something where, again, if you want to learn a little bit more about cob, or a little bit more about rammed earth, or a little bit about bottle glass, or botanical cells for earthships, we have videos and content and stuff like that on it. Speaking of earthship specific things, but also Colorado, and just to sidetrack a little bit, is water. So water is life, as we all know it. All of the lots here in the Baca, the chalet lots, you're hooked up to Baca water and sand. So you're more or less paying a water bill every month. Down in the grants, you have a well permit, right? And most people in the grants are hooked up to a well
And a septic.
and septic, wastewater treatment, right? So one thing that very few people, even people that have been here for a long, long time that I run across don't know about, and even the POA to a certain extent, is a number of years ago in 2016 or 15, I think it was, the state of Colorado changed things legally with rainwater harvesting. So for a long time in Colorado, you couldn't capture or use any bit of your rainwater. I want to say it was about 8 years ago, the state changed things, and you can technically use 110 gallons, 255-gallon rain drums to collect rainwater for, say, a garden. Say you got some tomato plants or whatever you're growing. You can water that little garden with 110 gallons. If anybody gardens, 110 gallons goes really, really quick, you know, and it's within days. It might be out in 10 days, right? You might be like, oh shoot, I'm out of my water. The thing about it is, if we don't have rain, although it rained epically the day or two before the Energy Fair, and we got a lot of rain, which was great, and I probably caught 200 gallons just in the front cistern, you can apply for a permit with the state of Colorado, Division of Water Resources, called a GWS 78 rooftop precipitation permit. The only people that can qualify this is if you are technically off-grid. So if you're in the chalets where you have the capability of hooked up to Baca water and sand or a wastewater treatment or whatnot, you cannot qualify for this permit. But if you have property down in the grants where you can qualify for a well permit, then you can qualify for this permit, and it's free. And what this permit does is let you collect any sort of precipitation, so rainfall and snow, obviously. The snow will melt into precipitation, right? And you can capture unlimited amount of rainwater for household use. So still, you're not really supposed to use that water for irrigation, things like that, unless you have a 35-acre parcel, and then you have 1 acre worth of irrigation rights. But you can use all of that water like traditionally Earthship has in Taos, New Mexico, to wash your dishes with, to flush your toilet with, for drinking water. So that's something that a lot of people, again, you might have a well permit. If you have a well permit, apply for this permit because it's free. It's Department of Water Resources. It's no different than how you apply for a well permit. It's just a specific application that you fill out and you get it back from the state engineer, and it's stamped and certified for you. And again, you know, I have 2,000 gallons worth of water capacity that I store and I use, and I do not have a well. I repeat, I do not have a well, and I have finaled with the POA without having a well.
And I advise applying online because I mailed mine in and they never got back to me.
Kim
Here
has
comes
a
Kim.
question.
Oh, yeah.
So is that for the property, or is the permit follow the person?
Permit follows the property.
Okay, good,
So
like
if
a
you-
well permit would.
Like a well permit follows the
Awesome.
property. So if you transfer that property, say I sold my Earthship and build another one and someone else has it, then they have that permit for rainwater harvesting because it's all set up. The infrastructure is already there. And again, state final plumbing inspection, state inspector didn't ask a thing because it's not his jurisdiction, it's mandated. And a lot of people here in the Baca don't know about that. So if you're absolutely interested in capturing rainwater, buy a 2,000-gallon cistern, get it buried, have it for emergency purposes, even if you have a well, but you can get it for free.
I think that's a lot of information. We're going to open it up to some questions. I think Mr. Rowe has a question. You in the microphone? I'll come to you.
When I was covering the POA for the paper, it came to light that nobody needs a well. You can haul water if that's what you choose to do, and it's nothing in the covenants that says you can't. Now, both Saguache County and the POA insist that you're going to have a leach field and septic tank, which is unfortunate. But first of all, is that true? And my B question is, I heard Saguache County is fooling around with the idea of making composting toilets legal. Do you guys know anything about that?
Yes, thank you, John. John's a neighbor down the road. Appreciate you. Yeah, so the first part of it is it is true, the first part of the statement. So when I filed my initial permits in 2017, there was a guy by the name of Charlie who was in charge of the EAC for the POA. It's kind of a committee that you submit drawings to, even though there's no code. They just approve kind of your sketch and your drawings and square footage and things like that, R values. And he told me, and I have an email still from him, and unfortunately he passed away a couple years ago, but you can absolutely do that. There's no jurisdiction of someone coming off, like again, I finaled with the state plumbing inspector with this system, and it's a state certified engineer that says, hey, you can capture an unlimited amount of rainwater. So yes, you can. And then to the humanure question, they covered it a little bit yesterday, John, on the building panel, but for everybody that didn't hear it, Lisa was talking a lot about it. Technically, you are allowed to have a humanure system or a composting toilet system rather, incinerating toilet system rather, but you have to have a septic tank as well. So it is unfortunate in the sense where you have to spend thousands of dollars if you don't even plan on using it, but in theory, you need to get that at least right now until maybe things change, but you can also have a humanure system after the fact, so.
And even in Saguache County, you don't even need any certifications to install your own septic. So if you guys want to DIY it, you can.
And I will say this
Figure
on
it
the
out.
septic tanks, just to give people ideas of prices and stuff. I had mine done years ago, and Matt did too. I know things have come up in cost, but Matt actually installs them, so he kind of has an idea of how much things cost still. Engineered systems, like they make you go to a architectural firm and engineering firm, and you have to get drawings of the system, and you have to have a perk test or soil evaluation test nowadays, and before it gets installed. And then the county inspector comes off and takes a picture and says, yay, that's great. But the thing about it was, I know I used a place in Salida called Mountain Engineering. Our friend Tony Canada.
He's the new county inspector, and he's the he can do plans too. Tony Canada over
Tony
there.
Canada over there with straw
Yeah.
bales, off-grid.
Talking septic,
builds.
folks.
Yep. But again, he can draw up your plans. And when I got my plans drawn up so many years ago, engineered plans, they were like $1,000. So I know some people, obviously, depending on your system, maybe it's more, maybe it's $10,000, maybe it's $7,000. But between my installation of my septic and the drawings, I was under $7,000.
I think it's more up to like 10 nowadays.
And it might be
Prices
more
have
like
raised.
10,
Prices
and
have
that's
raised.
inflation. But still, for about 10 grand, you can have a septic system.
Anybody have any questions on that topic? If not, we can move on to our homes. Cool. You want to talk about our house a little bit? Is that where we're going? Yeah. So we're just going to kind of go over, Pete and I we each built our own houses. Goldie was my partner on mine, and Pete did his by himself out of pocket. His is a little smaller. Ours is bigger. And pretty much just the cost of just information is just, it took us like about 5 years to build ours, or 4, on and off here and there. And we're in our build with the property and the well and the septic, living in the house at about like $110,000 on our earthship. It's about, a little over 1,000 square feet, 1,500.
And I'm
What about
probably, my airship, it's 900 square foot. So one thing I suggest to new folks that are building, I have friends that are in and out of town that are thinking about building, various people that bought land here and getting excited about it. 900 square foot is the minimum what the POA makes you build in the grants and chalets. I think Casita Park, actually, it used to be, I still think it is, it used to only be 720 for Casita Park. It might still be that, but I know 900 for the grants and the chalets. But yeah, long story short, I think it took me about a little over 4 years to final with the POA, and I'm probably about 70, maybe 80,000 into it, but I did everything out of pocket. It's like every extra $500, $600, $700 I had a month, I would put away, and that would buy cement, that would buy wood, that would buy windows. So every bit you save and sacrifice over a period of time that you're doing it, because it's going to take you a number of years if you're doing everything that way. And the one thing that you want to think about, especially in the BACA, is you have a time frame. Your initial building permit's only 18 months, a year and a half with the POA. After that, you have to apply for a 6-month extension every 6 months. And the unfortunate thing is the extensions double in price every 6 months. So if you have a $35 extension fee, $35 is no big deal for 6 months, but then it doubles to $70 the next 6 months, then it doubles to $140, then it doubles to $280, then it doubles 560, then 11 or 1200, you know, so it just keeps on going. So if you take 8, 10 years, 9, 10 years to build, those extension fees can bite into your budget. And it's kind of a bummer to have to cut a check for over $1,000, $2,000 just to work another 6 months on your build. The trick on that is after you get what's called exterior completion, which is more or less being dried in and kind of having your house all zipped up on the outside and done looking on the outside, it resets again. So say you're like how I did it, I was probably 2.5 years into it until I got exterior completion, got the stucco on the house, got the windows on the house, the outside looked done. But that $1,000 bill for my next extension turned back into $35. So there's kind of ways of doing it where you don't have to pay all those fees and extensions, but they do add up. So
Pound those tires fast, folks. Yeah, what is she going to do?
And one thing too, real quick, just about pounding tires, since we both did earthships, and this can apply for any sort of build, scree bag, straw bale, but get in with the community, get in with people that have done this before. Have work parties. I mean, both Matt and Goldie's house, my house, a lot of other neighbors that have succeeded or are still in the process of building out here. Invite, 5, 10 neighbors over and feed them for a Saturday.
You'd be surprised what people will do for food and a couple beers or sodas.
Yeah, because it's one of those things where not only are you getting experience, I know a gentleman asked yesterday on the building panel, how can we get the youth involved? How can we get people that want to learn this to kind of learn a trade, if you will, a unique trade like straw building or earthship building or whatever, to get into it? We'll go to a workshop, volunteer your time.
Create a kid-friendly environment and bring the kids, and
Yeah.
The kids can help too. They have fun.
Yeah, Kim has a question here.
Kim has one.
Statement question.
Well, I was just asking on your YouTube channel and what you guys are doing, do you have like a community board or something where people could be posting some of that so that you could, where, of course, the education series is awesome that we've, started with Goldie and everything, so people can come outside of the Energy Fair and partake. And I know I've been part of these as well. Individual people who may have experience or having a workshop on their own, and we want to support that. But it might not, I don't know if you guys are doing a community board or something like that on there. You are?
Pretty much our community board is our comment section is what we do, and then we just promote a video. We promote a workshop or something, and comment section's kind of the. But no, we don't. Do we
That's
have
a good. No, I like what
post or
Kim.
anything?
Yeah, I like what Kim's saying. I mean, we do use throughout the Energy Fair and kind of support Goldie's ongoing education series with workshops and collaborate. But you're right. We don't really per se have a specific site or availability to post other things. It's always kind of word of mouth, and then we kind of use the Energy Fair as a extended hand to get the word out on whether it's workshops they're doing or neighborhood stuff. But I will say this, when I first came here to Crestone, I had friends named Thomas and Deborah who were building an earthship down the road from me, and I was here, I bought land the year before that, but I was gonna plan on starting my build, and there's a thing called woofing. Raise your hand if anybody's ever heard of woofing before. Okay, so about half you guys maybe. So woofing is, I believe it stands for Worldwide Opportunities on Organic Farms. So it's primarily around farming and gardening and everything that goes into a farm. But there's a lot of, now and then you can find alternative builds on woofing too. So my friends Thomas and Deborah had an earthship build that was 1.5 miles down the road from where I was planning on building, and I stayed and lived with them for 3 months. I learned a little bit about the county stuff and building in the Baca. So I know it's not specifically our umbrella of volunteering and organizing, but sites like Workaway or Woofing are big-time sites where you stay with a host family and they feed you for 4 or 5 days of the week, and you might work 3 or 4 hours in the morning and then have your weekends off. So it's a great way to learn something and kind of continue your education or your area of where you want to get at, and people are doing similar things. So. Great question, John. So John was asking about the time period of building. So initially you have 18 months to pull your permits, or to build rather, with your POA permits, with your BACA permits. And then 6 months after that, it starts to expand into a fee. The fee system, again, kind of doubles every 6 months. But the way to reset your fee and to get your deposit money back that you deposit is you get some when your foundation is done. So like when all my tires were done with my 900 square foot earthship, I probably have 350 tires, 400 tires, which is really isn't a lot for, since it's such a small earthship. But I got $500 back from my deposit. After the next step of your deposit money you get back is what's called exterior completion. So when my stucco was done and my windows were done and my roof was done, even though I had dirt floors on the inside of my house and no electricity or no plumbing yet, I was able to reset my permit fee again to $35. So if you are 4 years into your build and you haven't got exterior completion, finish the outside of the house first and then do the inside, because besides the electrical inspector and the plumbing inspector, again, we don't have a county inspector that's going to come through and say, oh, those studs are 24 inches apart opposed to 16, or hey, your roof rafters are 24 opposed to 12. You know, there's nobody coming and looking at how you build it.
Even if it means pulling all of your stuff inside of your house just to get exterior completion and taking it out the next day, do what you got to do to get that finalized.
Yeah. Yeah,
The
it's all
tricks.
about getting off the system of paying.
Mr. Adam Kinney.
Thanks. What would you do different?
Great question.
Nice, Adam. You got some in mind?
Okay, so what I would do different, it's kind of a double-edged sword because I used a lot of repurposed materials, so pretty much every single window and door in my house except for one I got that was used, right? And I saved thousands of dollars on using repurposed materials. I think a lot of foam board that I got for certain things I repurposed, right? The thing about using repurposed materials, although you're saving money and you're giving it extra life, it's a lot of your own hours of processing things down. So if you take apart an old shed that has this awesome cedar wood on it and you want to use that cedar wood for trim or whatever, and you're going to rip it down and plane it down and cut it to dimension, things like that, all of that takes time. So I think I think if it was for me, I would have maybe used a little bit more stuff at the time if I could. And obviously, I was on a shoestring budget, so I didn't have a lot of financial ability. But if I would have been able to save a little bit more money to make it expedite the process of getting it done quicker, because there was a lot of time where even getting the tires, it's great to use them, but I went out, every tire I got was pretty much from Saguache County dump. And it was 40, 50 tires at a time. So it's just all day of just getting tires from the dump and landfill. And that's super fulfilling and cool because you're taking stuff out that's going to get buried and off gas into the environment or whatever, but it just takes a lot of time. So if I could, I would have maybe tried to expedite the process of using used materials.
We were just talking about this on the home tours today, and it's free materials aren't free. You know, in order to take free materials and make them look cool, it takes a ton of hours. We were talking about that with Jamie today. Good point. I agree with Pete on that. I also what I would do differently is I would have learned more about roofing systems. There's a lot of roofing politics out there. I just kind of struggled with mine a little bit, and my berm is a little bit annoying right now, and I would have maybe mouse-proofed my house a little bit better initially, as if you live here, you know what the mice can do. You know where they can go. It can be a messy nightmare sometimes, and I'm kind of living it now because of some work I didn't fully do.
That's a great to add on to Matt's. Another thing that I would have done differently on my earthship, I have infill cement slab, 4-inch slab, very traditional for out here, 4 or 5-inch slab. And the back slab I have insulated with recycled and repurposed foam board that I more or less got for free. But my front slab, which is about 300 square foot, I didn't insulate it. So because at the time it was going to be an extra $500, $600, $700 that I didn't have, and I just wanted to get that floor poured, you know. And looking back at it, it's like, I probably should have waited an extra month or two, push back pouring the slab and put foam in it, or whatever type of natural insulation, scria, anything, because sometimes it doesn't perform as good if I would have spent the money right away. Same thing with insulation in people's roofs or walls. Depending on whatever material you use, some are natural, some are unnatural. If you're on a budget, everything costs money. And it's like you would love to have your walls and have R40 in your walls or R50 in your roof or R60 in your roof, but sometimes it might only be R45, it might be R40. So it's like being able to spend a little bit more money on performance factors like energy stuff, so.
Yeah, and that's why we're here too, is a lot of this stuff is when you're building your own home, you get to a step and you're like, okay, we need to do this part, and it's like, well, how do we do it? And there's a ton of questions, and you can reach out to us for answers and what maybe not to do.
Any other questions? We got about 10 minutes left. Any other questions?
I think I have two quick questions. First, what did you guys do for work as you were paying for it over the 4 and 5 years? And then two, say you like bought land, could you just not pull your permit for a few years, save up money and like resources, and then pull the building permit?
Great questions. So when I first got here, I got a job at Moffitt School, the K-12 school. I have a degree in music technology and audio recording, so I actually was teaching out there. And the 4th year I worked there, where I was still building my house, I was teaching K-12, so I was full-time, but I think the salary that I was making was like $30,000 a year. So like how they said yesterday, that's almost at poverty at this level. Like 25 grand is poverty or whatever. It's crazy. But I was I was a school teacher, and during the summers and Moffitt's 4-day weeks, I've worked with a lot of local contractors to learn skill sets because, again, I had no experience with building. I didn't even own a screw gun or an impactor or a skill saw or anything. So I've worked with a lot of builders, and again, there's a lot of people that are happy to show you stuff, and whether it's conventional construction or alternatives construction, but I was a school teacher, and I worked weekends and summers doing construction to kind of help pay for it. Matt?
Didn't you work for Adam Kinney for a shift or two? Because I know
yeah.
I did.
Adam Kinney over there, Blue Earth Design. I worked at his wood shop, and he taught me a little bit about carpentry and some initial things before I actually built my house, so that was great.
Yeah, I did construction. I pretty much got sucked right into it. I had a little bit of construction experience before I moved here. I was a welder and worked on a farm, and I fixed a few cars and generators and just some mechanic stuff. Did a few welding projects with some of our community members who just scoop you up. And if you're willing to work here, man, there's construction work here that needs done. There's a housing shortage. There is plenty of work, and you don't need that much knowledge. I think it's 90% showing up and being willing to learn, and maybe keep your mouth shut a little bit and just swing the hammer, and get up there and do it.
And to answer the second question on when we bought our land and how much did we save up before we did it or whatever, I bought my land the year before I moved down here, and again, I got it for $2,700. It was dirt cheap back then. I think every car that I've ever bought in my life cost more than my land, which is crazy. But yeah, I took about a year or so worth of saving, and I really didn't have a lot when I first started. I think I maybe had 10, 12 grand to start with, and it was like, it went quick. And then everything else was $500 at a time, so.
Oh, yeah. I saved up a little chunk of money working in California before I moved out, and luckily my partner Goldie, we split the finances on our land, which was great. And we kind of just, we bought the land and got the permits and kind of roughed it out there for a little while. And thanks to our neighbors, Mark and Shara over there, who no one ratted us out for maybe sleeping on the property a couple nights we shouldn't have, but that's kind of how we got along, and bent a few rules. I'll say that out loud. I don't care.
Yeah.
To get it done, because you're invested in your parcel, you're invested in your land. Your house is going to be a part of you, and I think that the more time you spend out there, and the more time you're staring at stuff, even like eating dinner, just staring at the thing you just put up, like holy shit, like. Pardon my language. Like where are we going to go with this? It's step by step, and you have to wear a ton of hats.
Yeah.
Like sometimes you're an electrician, and 2 minutes later you got to start plumbing some stuff and get out the whole different tool bag. And no, once you pull your permit, the clock starts ticking. So that's why we were saying, you can buy your land and you still pay POA fees. And if you're in the grants, I believe you have to pay a water and sanitation bill, even if you don't have a active permit.
I don't know that, but maybe.
Yeah, you do, which is funny. But yeah, so once you pull that permit, the clock is going. So fill those bags and pound those tires quick, get it done in the time to where you can get exterior completion. And Chris Wybro, I just want to say his name. I really appreciate that guy. He works for the POA. I like to say something positive about the POA for a change, and I'm rooting for Chris. I think that he's a really good change for us.
Yeah. And working with the POA, working with your neighbors, meet people, have relationships with people where you're not being a hermit and trying to act like everybody's going to jump on you or, tell on you for something that you're really not supposed to be doing, but you're doing or whatever. Have a good relationship and be educated. Try to know what you have to do so you don't come into it thinking that, people need to explain every single step, because if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to show. And sometimes having a little bit of an idea or being a little bit prepared makes it easier of a process to do everything, whether it's POA, get county permits, land use, just have an idea of what to do.
Another slice of advice, if you are on a neighborhood email thread, try not to argue on those. Just walk on over and chat it out, because it usually ends up better face to face. I feel like it's a bad platform for neighborhood. It's a
Yeah.
good platform for information, but not a good platform to argue. So
And get along with your neighbors.
Get along with them. Do your best.
Don't be a jerk. Try
Knock
to
on
say
their
hello.
door, bother them a little bit. Right, guys?
We live in the country.
Yeah.
We live in a frontier county. If
It
you don't,
doesn't seem like it, but we are in the country.
Crestone keeps on growing and the Baca
Yeah.
keeps on growing, but wave. When you drive by someone, wave.
Yeah.
It's your neighbor.
Be friendly,
Recognize them.
love each other,
you know?
accept each other, help each other. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John.
Appreciate that. Appreciate that, everyone.
We got 5 minutes left. Tim has a question. I'll just say this, because I don't want to go too into details on certain things. Technically, you're not really supposed to live in your house until it's finalized. Wink, wink, nod, nod. But what it comes down to is, I think if you do, quote unquote, move in a little bit earlier than you're supposed to, sometimes you're working in your own mess. When I kind of moved into my place, and I wasn't really supposed to be there technically, but a year later I was official with it. I mean, I had dirt floors. It's like I was pulling stuff out from dirt floors to move chairs and beds so I could do the slab, or hey, I'm doing plasters and cob on the inside. Now I have to pull stuff back. Sometimes living in your own space that you're still trying to finish can be a nightmare. Not saying that it doesn't save money, because that's why I did it. I got sick of paying $1,000 a month for rent or whatever it was, and just said, hey, I can put that towards my build if I rough it a little bit. So,
Yeah, I think what I romanticize about it is just like being forced to kind of sleep outside and be outside more. Now that the house is built, I feel like we don't go outside as much as we want. And Crestone's beautiful. This is like the best place on earth, I think. It's paradise. And yeah, I just feel like I spend too much time inside, and I just remember sleeping out there and getting all the stars and the elk bugle and the season changes. You really you absorb it all. And I mean, I'm always dirty, but just being dirty is fun, I think, sometimes.
and speaking of outside, I'll tag on what Matt just said. Please, 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 if you don't get anything from the energy fair, the building panels, if you're planning on building a house, please, please, please think about passive solar and facing your house south. I don't care if you build a stick frame house, traditional house, whatever it is, face it south and try to get some of that passive solar, because we all love the mountains, and sure, we would all like our houses to be pointed at the east to look at the mountains, but your house isn't performing the same way, and it's like, go outside if you want to look at the mountains.
It's face your house south to get the sun, everyone. That's about it, right?
Any last minute questions?
Any questions?
We got 2
We have
minutes.
2
We got time
minutes?
for one more.
No?
Yeah. All right, thank you guys.
Cool. Thank you, Energy
Yeah,
Fair.
go check out our YouTube channel, Owner Builders Unite.
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Throw
We
a couple likes in there, maybe
do
a
a lot of
comment.
stuff with Energy Fair and support stuff that goes on throughout the year, so it's a good way to follow what's going on.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kim.